The Matrix video is coming soon. I swear. Don't laugh. It's coming. Alright? June and July video coming soon. Matrix video coming soon. The Matrix video is coming soon, I swear. Matrix videos coming soon. I swear to God, it's happening. The Matrix video is coming. I swear it's gonna happen. I swear it's happening. Okay? I swear. Alright? I guess on our channel it's been sort of a meme about this Matrix video that may or may not exist. We're back in business, boys. Got my hard drive fixed and got my information back. And yeah, I'm about to go back to working on this Matrix video. Why did I take so long to make this video? Hello everyone, and welcome to our long-awaited Matrix video. Now that you see how long it is, you know why it took so long. Really quick, for those who don't know how some of these videos work, we review the movie in the beginning, and then the bulk of the rest of the video will be talking about the politics of the movie. It'll be mostly me because that's just kind of how it goes. We did something similar in the Dark Knight video, we did something similar in the Black Panther video, and also in the Black Klansman video. Second to last quick thing, if you think you know where this video is going, I implore you to keep watching because personally, I think this goes deeper than most analysis of this interpretation of the Matrix. And finally, what you're hearing right now is not the original recording because I had to redo most of the intro because it became irrelevant as time went on. But I also decided to interject and expand on the original recording many times throughout the video. Okay, let's actually start the video now.
Chapter 1, The Bad Stuff. Like the Dark Knight video, before we start praising The Matrix to death, we have to talk about all the things we don't like about it. Although The Matrix is a great film, it is not perfect.
There is a lot of multi-layered symbolism that we will address later, but some of the entry-level symbolism is kind of unintentionally funny, but still fun. It's a weird feeling to explain, but early in the film, they bugged Neo like the government does to people they're investigating, and in The Matrix, the agents literally put a bug in Neo, and then when Trinity takes it out of him, she says, "We think you're bugged." It's so goofy, I don't know whether or not I love it or hate it.
Also, some of the VFX shots look pretty damn rough. Now look at this. Now look at this. Now look at this. Yikes.
The editing for the most part is fine, but I'm not a fan of the sequence where they fix Neo because the dissolves are really cheesy. Sometimes dissolves can work in a film, but when this sequence has elements of body horror in it, I kind of wish the editing supported those elements with harsh cuts, but I guess it was supposed to communicate how pedestrian this process is for the resistance and the time passage, but I still don't like it. Also, in this part of the lobby sequence, Neo obviously shoots the guy farther away before he shoots the guy closer to him, but the way it's edited, it shows the opposite. It's fucking weird. A less rational complaint I have is that Mouse is fucking annoying. He is so annoying. His presence in most of the scenes he's in makes me want to peel my nails and then scratch a chalkboard.
Take a look at his neurokinetics. The whale or tuna fish. You know, I wrote that program. She doesn't talk very much, but do you know what it really reminds me of? Tasty wheat. Did you ever eat tasty wheat? Because you have to wonder now. How do the machines really know what tasty wheat tasted like, huh?
Tasty wheat? Tasty wheat? Tasty wheat? I also think the sequence where the resistance has to hide between the walls from the agents could have been much better without music. The score deflates any tension this scene could possibly have. The audience could be biting their nails at every little sound that occurs, like creaking of wood and, breathing, until Cypher basically coughs on purpose. But fuck that. This is a Hollywood movie, and casual audiences don't see the utility in not being manipulated by music. Also, in this sequence, Agent Smith lets Morpheus sit on him for like a full minute without him saying anything or doing anything, and it's really weird. I guess Agent Smith is into it. It's a metaphor, but in all seriousness, look at all these shots where you can clearly see the reflection on the actor's glasses. It's ridiculous. Just tell the actors, hey, don't move your head that way because you can see the entire lighting setup in your eyes, and the most common place where people are going to be looking at is your eyes, and it's going to ruin the illusion, so don't do it.
While we're on that real quick, look at these douchebag agents wearing sunglasses at night. This isn't a flaw in the film, but the fashion choice is a flaw in people. I fucking hate them.
And probably the most annoying fashion choice is Switch wearing all white as opposed to wearing all black like everyone else. It has no significance to the plot or any metaphor I could find, and that's kind of annoying because she sticks out way too hard to have as little screen time as she does. Her bleach blonde hair already makes her stand out. The white attire is just overkill in my opinion. On the writing side of things, I wish the love story between Neo and Trinity was set up more. I wish I could watch them actually fall in love, but that would probably require that this movie be like 20 minutes longer. But it's the idea that they're going for in this movie that counts more than the actual development of these characters, I guess. We'll get to it later.
Also on the writing, I don't really like how blatantly obvious Neo being Jesus is. This is more obvious than Man of Steel's Christ imagery. This man literally calls him his savior. Like what?
Hallelujah. You're my savior, man. My own personal Jesus Christ.
And even if you didn't pick that up, his boss does a cliche, "You're not special, Neo. You act like the rules don't apply to you." What can you take from this? Seriously, what does this mean to you? Is it not blatantly obvious what is going to come? Even your average everyday movie watcher will be able to tell like 20 minutes in that Neo is like Jesus. Chapter 2, The Good Stuff.
I don't think you very often have the opportunity, frankly, to read something and go, you know something, this could really impact how we view a particular genre. Yeah, I think this has that opportunity, and I think people will mimic it.
The Matrix is inspired by the past and has inspired others since its release. The Matrix is a hodgepodge of the sci-fi elements and story structure of Star Wars, with the endless commentary of fate and destiny that comes with the Terminator, sprinkled in with the influence of anime, comic books, and kung fu movies. But it's inspired many other films since. The costume design of the X-Men films is very reliant on the popularity of the Matrix. Wearing comic-accurate suits? Why would we do that when we can be trendy?
You actually go outside in these things? What would you prefer? Yellow spandex?
The 2003 Daredevil film and Raimi's Spider-Man both imitate bullet time, and Daredevil has this train scene that has the same color palette as the Matrix train scene, where instead of talking about the sound of the train like Agent Smith does, Daredevil threatens his enemy with the light.
Hey, that light at the end of the tunnel, guess what? That's not heaven.
You get it? Because he can't see? Do you get it? Anyway, it also has Joe Pantoliano. And The Matrix has not just inspired films, it has also inspired the art that is professional wrestling.
Be that as it may. Look at it! Look at it! It's the Matrix below!
Stop looking.
You will see.
Stop judging.
You will understand.
Let go.
You will control your world.
Don't call my name, don't call my name.
Chapter 3, The Acting. I kinda have a huge problem with character development in this film. Everyone, and I mean fucking everyone, is so one-note and bland, and I think it impacts the performances. Neo himself has no real personality at all. He has no leader-like qualities. So why does everyone look to him to be the fucking one? Keanu also gives such a wooden performance. Am I wrong? Like, can you please rewatch this film and tell me I am wrong? It is so weird. I don't remember this man being so bland.
I don't believe it.
Well, as far as everyone being one note goes, I kind of disagree. I think Morpheus, Cypher, and Agent Smith definitely have depth, which I will get into later in the video. Neo, for story purposes, is a blank slate we're supposed to see this film through. And everyone believes him to be the one because Morpheus says so. And they all put their faith in Morpheus because of what the Oracle told him. As far as the performances go, I don't think they're bad. I think when people look at a performance, it seems to me like there's this search for a lot of things, but I think a good performance only requires one question, and that's, do I believe what they're saying or what they're doing? Is it believable? And if that answer is yes, then they've done their job. They're acting. I mean, a performance like this, or this in a film like The Matrix would be cool as fuck, but I don't think it fits in with The Matrix. Although Keanu Reeves is like peak Keanu in this movie, and although Keanu Reeves' range has proven to be quite shallow, I think this role is perfect for him.
I know Kung Fu.
As far as the other performances go, I think they're all good. Not Oscar worthy, but when Mouse is being an annoying shit, I fucking believe him. Go away, Mouse. I hate you. I hate you with everything in my soul.
You so motherfucking dangerous.
Chapter 4. The Action.
The Matrix is a film that, no lie, I have only seen once in my life before. I remember it was high school. I had to write a breakdown of the 3-act structure for Mr. Henning's intro to film class. Shout out to Mr. Henning. I remember back then in my youth, the themes and subtext went right over my head. To be honest, it still does even today. I'm really not going to talk about a lot of the metaphors and shit because I honestly want to just talk about the aspects of this film that work for me. This movie is praised for its action sequences, and it has always been deservedly so. Because look at this fight, oh my god, this is so fucking awesome. The karate in this movie is so great. Boom boom explosions, floppy disks, drunken boxing, robots, guns, more fighting, fucking 360 camera circling effect thing. It's so awesome. I love karate, fucking SpongeBob karate, it's so cool. Look at that. Oh my god, look, oh, that's so awesome.
I think one aspect of what makes the action work is that although the movie has a clearly defined 3-act structure, the first act itself feels like it starts in the middle of it. The characters in the beginning of this film are usually in the middle of an action. The opening sequence of the film is a great example, Trinity being in the middle of a mission. The film knows that we don't need the extra scene to explain what Trinity is going to do in this mission, and then Trinity entering the Matrix, and then Trinity finding where she needs to go, and then all, you know, like that's just boring. Like, we don't need that. And the film knows we don't need to be told how Neo already knows about the Matrix. In a lesser film, the film would try to explain the concept of what the Matrix is in some sort of expository narration or some expository scene where a character tells Neo that a thing called the Matrix exists before the movie even really begins. But when this film starts, he's already heard of Morpheus and Trinity.
My name is Trinity.
Trinity. The Trinity? That cracked the IRSD base.
That was a long time ago.
And he's already eluded by the Matrix. Starting the movie with all that information available to the protagonist speeds up the pace for the audience, so when we get to the action scenes, it feels all the more thrilling. Besides, this film has a lot of explaining to do anyway, so it's cool that those moments are chosen wisely. One of my favorite action sequences in the film is the dojo fight, and I think there's plenty to appreciate about this fight that bleeds into the other action sequences.
The dojo fight is treated with the same importance as every other fight scene in the movie, and I don't think a lesser movie would give this training scene this much narrative power.
Also, there's specific moves from the dojo fight that carry over into the subway fight. For example, the shot of Neo backflipping onto the platform matches this shot from the dojo fight.
Notice how in the first shot he goes from right to left to foreshadow Morpheus getting the upper hand, and in the second shot, he's moving from left to right, signifying his growth and the journey he's gone through. Yes, this movie is very good.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
One of the things I think that really elevates this film is the dedication by the cast and crew to make sure that the actors were able to do most of their own stunts. The cast trained for months to make sure that they were in shape and able to perform the choreography correctly. Now, in today's world, that's pretty much the standard with any big action movie. J.K. Simmons got old man ripped just to stand in one spot for Justice League. But back then, that wasn't really the standard. You had rubber suits, and shiny things.
Cool party!
But the Matrix cast had to be in shape like the actors in the Hong Kong films that inspired the Wachowskis, where the shots are wide and the choreography is tight. I mean, if you spent even a second on the film side of YouTube, you've probably seen every frame of paintings video on Jackie Chan, or literally anyone talking about The Raid where they mention the same reasons as to why the action is so good. But the fact that they went the extra mile like they did on a Hollywood film adds so much more novelty and rewatchability to the film, because you know the actors are actually in the fights and they're actually fighting and they actually know how to fight.
We're like, wow, if you could get an actual Hollywood star to do something like this, it would be amazing.
Who's that?
We'll get to that later. Also, Keanu Reeves had a neck fusion operation right before training started, so it made what he had to do in the film even harder.
He could have been paralyzed if he really messed up. To make up for this, Keanu trained on off days and went long hours. His commitment to the role is felt in the film, especially when you know the information about his next situation. I think his ability to do the stunts is just as much a part of his performance than the regular acting scenes. But this wasn't only exclusive to Keanu. In the lobby shootout scene, this move right here was supposed to be one shot, but Carrie-Anne Moss hurt her ankle really badly and she couldn't do the move. Watch this and see her reaction to when it happened.
I remember thinking in the moment that I hurt my ankle that, oh my God, I'm down, but I can't be down. And then when I was told that it was just like one take, and I just was like, okay, no matter what, I'm gonna be able to do this. No matter what, I'm gonna do this. No matter what, I'm gonna do this.
This movie is so fucking awesome to just sit down and watch. I think that having a movie take place in a fictional world gives a huge advantage to the filmmakers. This kind of bends the rules and lets them be able to actually do anything with these characters. The flying and moving at supersonic speeds and dodging bullets doesn't seem too over the top, and feels realistic in a way. They had people do literally anything they wanted and had it all make sense. When you're watching The Matrix for the first time, you're seeing Trinity do these wild-ass moves that make no sense, but then as the film progresses, it makes sense. The Matrix is like an onion. It's cool. I want some onions. Some fucking caramelized grilled onions over my steak. Oh my fucking god. I know I said before that the karate in action is badass, but like, why is karate the end-all be-all in a world where you can literally do anything? I know it is here to actually have a film, because without it the movie would probably be extremely boring, but it doesn't work for me. Imagine if the final act of the film was just hacking and there was no real action sequences. It just feels weird to me that they can do whatever they want but end up just fucking fisticuffs to resolve conflict.
But they are hacking. Neo defeats Agent Smith by going inside him and destroying him from the inside out. The world of the Matrix is just a bunch of code, and the signals in their brains translate everything they see. It's like hacking, but with your mind. Also, there's no simpler metaphor for a back and forth struggle than a fight.
Whatever. Also, this fight is just real dusty. My guy needs to take a bath or something, like Jesus. Jesus, get it? Neo is Jesus? To take a bath is like baptism, and Jesus is like Superman? Kal-El works in an office like Neo? It's art. Zack Snyder's the best director of all time, and if you don't think Zack Snyder's the best director of all time, you need to fucking die. Okay, also there's this one quick scene that I want to mention really quick to emphasize the earlier point you made about the action being in wide shots. When Neo is handed a phone in the mail, he is told by Morpheus to hide in a cubicle across the way. This moment brings great tension to the film, and you can see moments like this throughout because you can see the protagonist and the threat in the same shot. It's not super wide, and it's not all in a oneer, but shots like this are worth noting. It's exceptional. It's art.
Chapter 5, The Cinematography. The Matrix was heavily storyboarded, and it shows. The film feels meticulously crafted on a visual level, in terms of what the film wants to achieve with each shot, whether it's intimate, or imposing, or fucking cool. It's got it all. When I rewatched the film for this video, I immediately thought of Seven and The Game as inspirations for the film's cinematography. The scenes are usually high contrast, an emphasis on implied one-source lighting. The camera movements are robotic. Anyway, I heard two people talking about inspiration for this film, and they said,
whenever you have an aesthetic shift and what the dominant cultural aesthetic is, that movie or that piece of art is always attacked. People always hate it. For me, the origin of the aesthetic of something like The Matrix really starts with Blade Runner, which was a very urban, gritty, high contrast, very moody light. There was another movie that came out the same year, which was called E.T.
Right.
And E.T. was done in sort of this very dominant aesthetic of the day. It was very soft, glowy light. Contrast was very low. It was very filtered light.
The storyline was clear.
The storyline is very clear. There's an innocence to the style. And Ridley Scott was more interested in this kind of very aggressive, dark aesthetic.
That's not the Wachowski brothers. Who is that?
Anyway, it makes more sense now that I've heard that point of view, that the Wachowskis were following the example that Ridley Scott put forth with Blade Runner, further pushing an aesthetic shift until it becomes the mainstream, which, going back to earlier in this video, is exactly what happened to a certain extent. But going back to the actual film, we have all kinds of things that try to change the way you see films and try to introduce you to new things visually. Like this shot of Trinity diving through the air, which is impressive because of the camera movement, and look at the energy between all these shots, it flows so well. When Neo is on the ship, there are many perspective shots showing how he sees through his real eyes. I would have loved if the whole movie from that point forward started using that type of shot, showing that he's using his real eyes and not the eyes that the Matrix gave him, but I'm glad we got some of it. Most films are shot from this 45-degree diagonal angle, just because most films do it, and it's the standard, and it's fucking boring. I mean, even this film does it, but as I'm going to get into later, even this regression in the aesthetic shift is purposeful. I also love this detail when they go back into the Matrix. They made car scenes when they're in the Matrix look more fake than it was earlier in the film, to add to your experience as you're seeing the artifice of the world like Neo is. It's fucking awesome. And without knowing that detail, you know it just looks off.
The thing that used to convince him before he was told the truth, it now looks remarkably fake. So green screen is too sophisticated a technique. We can make it look real. So I wanted to use something as fake as Hitchcock's old rear screen projection. The same way, you know, Cary Grant looks fake driving down the street in North by Northwest.
There's even a line in this scene that emphasizes that idea here.
Unbelievable, isn't it?
That's all true and cool and all, but I think some of the things in the film are very iffy. Like, why is it color corrected to be so green all the time while we are in the Matrix? Is this supposed to be what color the internet is or something? When I look around in my life, there's not a green undertone to things. I think this choice is very weird.
Well, the symbolism of the green usually represents this idea of an idyllic and tranquil space. Another reason is that it matches the actual code of the Matrix on the screen in the Nebuchadnezzar. But also there's a line where Cypher says,
"It means buckle your seatbelt, Dorothy, because Kansas is going bye-bye."
Which obviously is a reference to The Wizard of Oz, and the palette of the Land of Oz is bathed in green. But spoiler alert for a film that came out 70 years ago, the wizard wasn't real. It was all fake. Also, it could be a reference to the fact that the Matrix is a representation of the hyper-consumerist state of the world, and money is green, so yeah. And the Matrix itself was supposed to pass as the time period when this film came out, showing that the status quo of the time is a sham and is subject to change, and trans rights are human rights.
Wait, what?
Later.
No, I'm tired of waiting. I mean, I know what's coming, but I'm also the audience, and I don't want to wait anymore. I'm over it.
But I still want to talk about the visual effects, the music, and the other symbolism of the Matrix itself before I share my perspective on what the Matrix is about. We're united right now. We have things that we agree on.
Okay, but do it rapid fire style. You have 1 minute to do all those things.
Okay. The deja vu thing is beyond cool. I also think how they figured out how to do bullet time with all of those cameras was smart as fuck. All of the body horror elements of this movie are fucking repulsive and I love it. The score is incredibly memorable. I love that trumpets are added to the score when Neo does Superman shit. It's like he's actually Superman. I also love the needle drops in the soundtrack. Like you mentioned before, Neo is called Jesus Christ, but more Christ references include the Nebuchadnezzar being the name of Morpheus' ship, which references a Messiah. Zion is also a biblical term. Neo literally rises from the dead like Jesus. The One also references the second coming. Also, the film references other things like Baudrillard's book about the simulacra, which in the film is hollowed out just like the Matrix. The Alice in Wonderland references are mostly surface level, but still cool. All in all, the Matrix in real life is your phone, a book, or a person, or even the film The Matrix itself. It's a placeholder for anything that you hold to escape your shitty life. Also, Reloaded and Revolutions don't work as singular movies, but I still think they're a ton of fun.
Lit. Okay, now spill the tea.
Well, don't you want to get our scores for the film out there before we get into it? The audience and I agree so much right now, and I'm trying to not ruin it.
That's true. Let me go first because you talk too much. Okay, so The Matrix is a good movie, don't get me wrong, but the movie kind of feels different. Yeah, the action scenes are great, and if you're watching just for that, you won't be disappointed, I guess. But the Christ stuff seems super heavy-handed. I don't know, the metaphors and such are there and they're cool, but after rewatching this movie 2 more times in the span of a week, I feel like it's good, but just not great. I appreciate it for doing what it did for the industry, and like revolutionizing it or whatever, but like, it just feels so whatever. I'm going to give The Matrix a 7 out of 10. That's a pretty good score for a pretty good movie. Can't wait for the remake.
Oh yeah, that's happening, isn't it? Well, I'm giving it a 9 out of 10 for the reasons I've already said, and for the other stuff, okay, it's time.
Not my sword, Mondego, but your past that disarmed you. Go take counter Mondego to his home.
Gets me every time.
Never seen it.
Really? Would you like to?
Does it have a happy ending?
As only celluloid can deliver.
Okay. Put the sword away.
Chapter 6, addressing the title of the video, sort of.
So when you read the title of this video, you might have been uncomfortable with the premise, or you might have been curious, or angry, or whatever. But the title is kind of misleading. So I want to set a preface before I continue. My goal with this part of the video is to show how the red pill philosophy is not for conservatives. It's been hijacked by them from a movie that simply wasn't made for them. And I want to show that there is a blatant misunderstanding of the film's messaging. When people talk about The Matrix, they usually talk about the simulacra stuff, and that's it. And when people talk about red pill, they never talk about this film. Also, I don't want to demonize conservatives, although, I mean, we're gonna get into it, or white men, per se. But instead, I want to attack the ideas that conservatives attach to this movie because it doesn't exactly match. And ultimately, at the end of the day, these people are poor just like we are, unless you're Ben Shapiro, or someone more famous than Ben Shapiro.
There's kind of a deep phoniness at the center of his shtick. And again, as I say, the shtick is sort of built on this perception that he is the character he plays. He is every man, this kind of, he's not right-wing, he's a populist, fighting for you against the powers that be. And that's great as a shtick, but I'm just saying the moment that it's revealed not to be true, it's over.
And they're getting fucked just as much as we are. But they're being used as pawns to feel like they're not being used and they're living by their own terms, even though they definitely are being used. Bob Dylan made an entire album about this. So with that being said, if you've seen enough videos on this channel, or if you saw the Dark Knight video, you might be wondering, why have you barely talked about the director's involvement in the video? You always talk about the director, blah blah blah. Well, that's because who we knew the Wachowskis as in 1999 is not who the Wachowskis are now. When you think of transgender representation in film...
Wait, what? What does this have to do with anything? I don't get it.
The Wachowskis are transgender. They're the T in LGBTQ. And certain people don't know that at all.
We are snapping out of the fucking trance! And no one's gonna fucking stop it!
Anyway, let's talk a little bit about trans representation in film. I'm apologizing preemptively to the trans community if I get certain things wrong. I just saw a connection, and I wanted to use the film knowledge I've collected over my short life to bring this into the conversation somehow. Although I don't know if that'll even happen, but, you know, whatever.
You're probably realizing right now, uh-oh, we got a talker here.
I'm sure if ContraPoints did a video on this or something, it would be much better, but she hasn't, so you've got this spic.
Chapter 7, Trans Representation in Film. Also warning, we'll show clips that don't use the correct terminology.
So in regards to trans representation in film, you'd probably think that the list of films that represent trans people in a positive or negative light wouldn't be a long list, and it isn't. But it's more vast in terms of when these stories were first being told than I originally thought. The oldest example of this I could find was in 1953's Glenn or Glenda, and its IMDb plot description definitely needs a rewrite. Holy shit. Well, maybe you weren't one of the 7,000 plus people who have seen this Ed Wood movie, and I'm not one of them either. And that's okay, because there's other places where trans representation lies that people have actually been exposed to. There's another film called The Christine Jorgensen Story, which came out in 1970, which also has some problematic advertising. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. I'm trying to show the comparison of the posters for that film opposed to how contemporary films about trans people are handled. There just seems to be a sensitivity issue back then. It feels exploitative and, like, bad. I'd hope in my heart that if a big studio made a trans movie back then that they would take the marketing seriously, but I don't believe that for a second. Another film from that era that I've actually seen that mentions trans people is Hitchcock's Psycho from the year 1960. And I know it's got problems. We're going to talk about it. Don't worry, people who just raised your eyebrows.
In the climactic scene where the killer is revealed,
we see Norman Bates dressed in women's clothing. In the explanation of what happened, a psychiatrist explains that Norman has a personality disorder where he switches from being himself to being his mother. Then this happens.
Why was he dressed like that?
He's a transvestite.
Not exactly.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Okay, so I think it's important to add that I do not think that Norman Bates is a trans person. All I'm stating here is that they mention trans people, and from the classic films that I've seen, I don't think I've ever seen trans people mentioned at all. You have your Maltese Falcons of the world where gay people are coded in some characters, but this is the first example I could find that I've seen that mentions trans people, whether it's offensive or not. But Hitchcock, from the films I've seen from him, kind of demonizes the other, especially women. Like, he just has dudes killing women a lot. Michael Powell even made a whole film about how Hitchcock just likes to kill women in his movies. In 1975, we got the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and Rocky Horror's most memorable character, Dr. Frankenfurter, got it, is a transgender alien mad scientist. She starts off as the antagonist, and as the movie progresses, she becomes an anti-hero. It bombed at the box office, but then it achieved cult status and has been playing in movie theaters sporadically ever since. It's like The Room, but it's not ironically successful. Then a few months later, the first big film that people actually saw that actually kind of dealt with the subject is Dog Day Afternoon, starring Al Pacino, John Cazale, and directed by Sidney Lumet. What, in my opinion, made this movie so groundbreaking is it's the first film that people actually saw that actually showed the love between a cisgender man for a trans woman.
A what?
A cisgender man. You know what that means.
Yeah, but old people might watch this and they're not going to know what the fuck that means. You're probably going to have to define a lot of terms if you're going to get into this deeper.
That's what he said.
You're totally right. So, the term cisgender, according to the internet, means denoting or relating to a person whose sense of personal identity and gender corresponds with their birth sex. So, basically, if you were born with
a penis
and you identify as a male, or if you were born with
a vagina
and you identify as female, you're cisgender. Also, a lot of cisgender dudes get real wound up about the term cisgender, and when I first heard it, it kind of rubbed me the wrong way too. I don't think it's what the word means that is provoking, but actually how the word sounds. Cis is a sandwich of s sounds, and it sounds snake-like. See what I did there?
I'm a slithery little sneaky snake.
It just doesn't sound good to be called cis from purely an aesthetic standpoint. Like how certain curse words are more effective than others. Like the word fuck is an extremely impactful word aesthetically because it starts with a hard f sound and ends with a hard k sound. It sounds like how the word is supposed to feel. But with cis, the sound of the word doesn't really match the intention of the word. And I think that's mostly the root cause of why it bothers people. Aesthetics are really important and they affect people's view of most things. And what most people will walk away from is the aesthetic. But we'll get to that later. Wow, my ability to foreshadow is unmatched. Okay, back to Dog Day Afternoon. Like I said, what in my opinion made this movie so groundbreaking is it's the first film that people actually saw that I could find that showed the love between a cisgender man for a trans woman. One of the few criticisms I think one could have about Dog Day Afternoon's subject matter and the way it deals with it is that we don't know that his motivation for robbing the bank was getting the money to pay for her gender
confirmation
surgery until a significant way into the movie. But I think it was done that way for two reasons. One, other heist films with different intimate motivations for their protagonists or antagonists are also revealed throughout the film as devices for twists to make the story more compelling. Inside Man is probably the easiest example I could find of this, and two, the world just wasn't ready for it yet, and I'd argue by today's political discourse, they still aren't. I've seen some great films that touch on the subject, and they're barely recognized. They don't make money, but Dog Day Afternoon is a must-watch classic film. Like, if you have any interest in film, you have to see this film, based on acting, direction, just everything.
When you look at back what Lumet was doing with the trans character at the time, I mean, the respect that he showed, he did not, he treated that relationship with full love and with a very serious eye at a time when no one was, really grappling with those things. He's generous.
Then, 15 years later, we got Paris is Burning, which is a cult classic documentary that accurately captures the experience of the LGBTQ community in New York City in the 1980s. It captures their dreams, their escape from reality, and the danger that comes with simply being who they are. It's on Netflix as I'm recording this. Please watch it. Other than that, there aren't too many films that are popular that represent this community in a positive light, or any light at all.
To this day!
And I probably didn't even mention other films that people are gonna be like, you didn't mention this movie, or you didn't mention this movie. And please, give me suggestions. I wanna watch more movies. Just, I wanna watch them all. And it's not just the trans community, but the LGBTQ community in general. They're either comic relief, or the supporting character, or the villain. Or these characters will be coded as LGBTQ, and the filmmakers just won't come out and say it.
Or they'll be like J.K. Rowling and announce it after all of her books have been published already, even though there wasn't any indication of his character being gay through his character. Or they'll be like J.K. Rowling again and just be a giant TERF.
And the thing with all of those films is that they were directed by cis men and women. And when they're portrayed positively, or they're the protagonist of the film, it's usually in a drama or a comedy. Never an action movie, because that wouldn't be marketable or something. Until 1999, that is.
Are you implying The Matrix is a metaphor for the struggle of trans people?
Deal with it. Yeah, motherfucker.
Chapter 8, Symbolism in Film and the 3 Levels of Film Art.
I think there's a very interesting, aesthetic genealogy to The Matrix. And if you really want to understand any art medium, you have to start understanding aesthetics. It's like studying life and you need to understand how DNA works. Aesthetics are like the DNA of art. And it's really the way that you begin to understand intent, artistic intent. It's the way that artists reveal themselves and their choices aesthetically.
I would like to establish on this channel that movies don't have to be about one or even 2 things. They could mean many things, however you interpret it. A singular scene could have a metaphor for something that isn't expressed in the rest of the movie. Films are like albums in that an album can have a clearly defined theme, but within that album are many songs that deal with other topics as well. And I also don't think a metaphor or an interpretation necessarily has to consistently run throughout the film either, because most films of value thread the needle between the 3 levels of film art. The first being the immediate conscious level, which is the events that transpire throughout the film. It's the plot. The second being the intermediate or contextual level. So however the film is framed politically, culturally, historically, psychologically, or within a genre. To put it simply, it's the subtext. It's whatever immediate meaning that you got from what was implied in the scene. Finally, the third level being the mythic or archetypal level. This is the unconscious perception and understanding, the primary myths, symbols, and images that trigger something profound within us all, regardless of the cultural circumstance you're viewing under or the cultural framing of the film itself. Usually, the third level is easy to find in the masculine and feminine archetypes that are found in films. But let me make it clear, masculine and feminine archetypes are not the only things that you can get out of the third level. Just want to make that clear. The feminine archetype can be identified in symbols like triangles, circles, anything vaginal, like something you would see in a Georgia O'Keeffe piece, or literally the entire production design of Alien, water, and anything natural, really. The male archetype is found in rigid, square-like shapes, fire, anything man-made, phallic imagery like guns, knives, a camera lens, rockets, bars, poles, anything that evokes the male genitalia. But also, the third level is mostly what the director is trying to tell the audience symbolically, or what the audience interprets those symbols to be. I believe in the intent of the director, but I also believe that the interpretation of the audience is just as valid. And I think they can live in the same space as long as the interpretation is valid, meaning it can be supported by the film itself. And I really don't want to be one of those people who are like, I'm telling you what this movie is for sure, but like, when I show you these ideas, I hope you'll make your own interpretation just from the images I'm showing you. But I just get weirded out a little bit by people telling you that this is objectively what the film is about. But I do think that the case I'm going to make is very strong, and yeah. That's all you can really do. And you might be wondering, where did you learn this from? School. I got educated, so I'm gonna use that education, and I'm not ashamed of it. So fuck you. Let's do a quick exercise just so you fully understand this, just because some people can hear something or be told something and automatically get it, and others need examples. So let's use Arrival as an example. Everyone's seen Arrival, I hope. If you haven't seen Arrival, I'm about to spoil the fuck out of it. And if you didn't understand what I was just talking about, and you care about spoilers for Arrival because you haven't seen it yet, I guess you're shit out of luck. I don't know what to tell you. So there's this scene right here where Luis makes a meaningful connection with the aliens. Let's do the first level first. The plot. They come in these orange suits. The aliens try to communicate in their own inky language. Luis takes off the suit against the advisement of her superiors. Luis makes a connection with the aliens. Ian follows Luis's example by getting halfway out of his suit. They make names for the aliens. Then you see the soldiers behind them watching what just happened. That's the plot. Now, let's do the second level, what I believe to be the subtext of the scene. What you get from this scene is that Luis is going to be the only person who is going to fully immerse herself in the understanding of the aliens. By understanding the aliens, she understands what's going to happen to her child in the future. Her being completely out of the hazmat suit is a metaphor for how Luis is fully committed to her future, no matter how dangerous it may be for her to know the truth.
Despite knowing the journey and where it leads, I embrace it.
You see that Ian tries to follow her, but he never takes the suit all the way off, signifying that he's supporting her, but he's not nearly as committed as she is. And that's shown later in the film because he didn't want to fully accept the truth about what happens to Hannah.
And when I told your daddy, he got really mad. And he said I made the wrong choice.
This scene is foreshadowing the entire film. To add on to that, this shot of the soldiers looking is just their overall dissatisfaction, confusion, and resentment that they have with how Luis and Ian are handling the situation, which is obvious. But I think their reactions speak for all of the men that Luis has to traverse in this film to fully connect with herself. The third level, like I said, is more symbolic and archetypal. The humans and the aliens are separated by this barrier that is a large rectangle, like a movie screen, which is similar to how you're seeing the film, similar to how you're watching this video. The barrier is symbolically masculine. What the humans see on this screen-like rectangle are these beings with phallic-like limbs that spew out an ink that creates different variants of a circle, which is the alien language. The language is symbolically feminine, and the aliens are symbolically masculine. The feminine is coming out of the masculine. Luis understanding these circles is what ends up saving humanity. Later in the film, the aliens tell Luis that they came from the future to help humans, because in the future, humans save them from danger. That timeline is also circular, like how the film itself is structured like a circle. It ends where it begins. The structure of what you're seeing is feminine, but the framing of how you're seeing it is masculine. And the framing of how the aliens and the humans see each other is masculine. And the framework that Luis has to work in is masculine. In the scene we've mainly been focusing on, Luis takes off the hazmat suit to connect to the aliens, but she does it after she looks at the bird in the cage. Life trapped in a box. It's literally the masculine archetype imprisoning the feminine. So Luis takes off the man-made suit in rejection of the masculine, in rejection of her superiors who are all male, and it's like a breath of fresh air. She even stops the Chinese president from starting a war because she connected with him through his love for a woman. She tells him his dead wife's last words, which translate to, quote, "In war, there are no winners, only widows." To me, this is what the heart of Arrival is in the symbolic sense, on the third level. At least that's how I interpret it. But all of these things are in the film, like you can't deny. Also, there's probably gonna be people who are like, well, you know, the circle is just a circle, and yeah, go ahead, think that. Go ahead. Contrary to what people believe, these films that people love aren't just made because people have wild imaginations. It doesn't take the form that it does out of nowhere. It's coming from something. It's being interpreted from an idea. And this is a good framework for what these ideas come from.
Lit, go back to The Matrix now. It's been fucking years already.
Okay, so what we've talked about so far in regards to The Matrix has mostly been on the first and second levels. Now, we're gonna get more into the symbolic nature of this film. and the third level. A film can weave many messages through these levels, so I think almost any interpretation can be perceived as valid, as long as it can be supported by the text and or what the directors have said about the film itself. Like, you can't just say, hey, The Matrix is a commentary on how I like to peel my toenails and how satisfying it is when the skin rips, because that would be weird, and also it has nothing to do with the movie at all. Just like how right-wing groups on the internet have appropriated The Matrix and the phrase red pill as if the film supports any of their ideas or how any of their ideas are used in practice, which it doesn't. And I'm not okay with that at all, and I think it would be extremely weird and not above this timeline we're currently experiencing at all if a film made by trans people was appropriated by right-wing talking heads on the internet who do not respect their right to be trans people, and then suddenly the term red pill becomes a symbol of hate. It's happened many times before. The swastika was once a—
You can't compare the red pill to the swastika.
Shut the fuck up. We're starting with the most extreme example and then we're getting less and less extreme. Just kidding. Every example of a radicalization of a symbol is extreme. Fuck you. The swastika was once a symbol in Indian religions, then it was appropriated by Western culture as a symbol for good luck, and then the Germans were like, nah, fuck that. This is gonna be on our flag when we commit genocide. So we can't use that symbol anymore. Remember Pepe? Remember this meme? Well, we can't use this meme anymore because during the 2016 election, edgelords were like, yeah, let's get the mainstream media to believe this is a hate symbol, so no one can use that meme anymore. Cool. Lit. Well, you can use Pepe, but it has seen a dramatic drop-off in its usage. But as time has gone on since I've started making this video, it has actually seen a resurgence in popularity in light of the Hong Kong protests, the documentary Feels Good Man, and Twitch streamers like Hassan Piker.
What a fucking liar, dude. What a fucking Weasley little liar, dude.
Millennials, remember the phrase keck? Remember using that instead of LOL? Well, the alt-right was like, let's take that phrase and turn it into a dog whistle for racism and make a flag for a fictional country called Kekistan, which looks exactly like this flag, but it's green, so it's different. Sure. And then they'll just parade it around at rallies for white supremacy. So obviously it's not racist at all.
Okay, but that, like, let me show you.
We don't
If you really want to make America great again, like I do, like seriously, I voted for Trump. Okay? I'm on your side. I'm on your side.
Yeah.
No, but I understand what you're saying. This isn't helpful. But can you agree that this is obviously meant to emulate the Nazi?
No, it is not at all meant to.
Come on, look at the picture of it.
It's green, and it's got a stripe through the middle and 4 clovers at the top. It's not a Nazi flag, believe me. You know how many people have posted this next to a Nazi flag? You don't have to pull it up. I'm Jewish.
It's obviously meant to imitate it. Like, how can you deny it?
Just a symbol alone.
There's all the design elements are the same.
You see how hateful people can ruin cool things? Well, the red pill is pretty much there, and that's fucking lame. So I'm gonna tell you how pro-trans, pro-LGBTQ, and anti-conservative in general, The Matrix is. All I'm offering is the truth. You can take the blue pill, and you can leave and go back to your echo chamber of—
It's not easy to sell conservatism to young people because they want to change things, and that's not what conservatives want to do. They want to maintain things.
Or you can take the red pill and see how far the rabbit hole goes. Do you get it? I'm being postmodern. Ha 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 ha.
Does the red pill get us to the point?
Chapter 9. The Red Pill.
But I do think it's crazy that I'm about to be 34 and I have no family. Because my dad had 2 kids by the time he was 27.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, you know what the problem is, though? It's definitely not me.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's everybody else.
Real quick, I would also like to point out what I mean by The Matrix isn't for conservatives. And again, I'm sorry if this gets too political for some people, but the name of our channel is a play on a political film about race and class, so you know what you're getting into. But over the years, I kept stumbling over this term red pill, and I was like, are people really using a film prop to describe their ideology? That's strange.
Have you taken the red pill? That means not taking the blue pill.
Why red pill somebody when you can Reese's Pieces somebody? That one makes sense.
E.T.'s back, and you can see him for free. When you buy Reese's candy, you can get free movie tickets. See in-store displays for details.
Why red pill somebody when you can Potter's wheel somebody? That sounds more fun.
What does red pill mean? I mean, I know what it means in the movie, but like, what does it mean in real life?
What people mean when they say red pill is when liberals turn into conservatives. So basically, someone was like, hey, the Republican Party's color is red, and the red pill is red, so I'm gonna take that reference and appropriate it for my ideology. The connection is a little too simple.
It's a little bit more complicated than that, but most of the people who use the term red pill unironically are conservatives or people who vote for conservatives.
But I watched some videos about it, and I mean,
people should be making memes about this.
I do understand where they're coming from. They thought one way their whole life, and then they became an adult, and they learned that people aren't just stereotypes that are assigned by society, that life isn't exactly black or white.
Oh wow, I didn't know that not all people who belong to certain socioeconomic groups carry the same personality types and values.
Okay, I'm just going to stop the video really quick because the next 2 or 3 minutes is just going to be full-on politics, and I'm fully aware that this video is going to get copyright struck into the sun, and this video probably won't be public until after the election. So this part is either going to be a reminder of the hell we just escaped, or it's going to be an indicator of what's going to come or be even worse in the next 4 years. So yay for that gamble.
So when they found out not all white people are bad, not all cops are bad, not all feminists are nice, that men also suffer from the same things that women do, like mental health issues, suicide, and sexual assault. And one of the more popular threads was that Obama wasn't the second coming like they thought he was, and apparently didn't take into account the 3 branches of government, and also didn't take into account a do-nothing legislative branch that had no intention of compromising with anything that he wanted to do because of George Lucas neck and discount Anthony Weiner.
Our top political priority over the next 2 years should be to deny President Obama a second term.
But with all that information, they decided to side with a party that doesn't believe in global warming, that didn't want to compromise with anyone when 20 elementary school children were shot to death in class.
My worst day as president was hearing that 26-year-olds had been shot in the most brutal way. I didn't expect that you'd see some huge movement on gun safety legislation, but I thought, well, they're going to have to make some effort. And the fact that it didn't even get the kind of hearing and votes that you would have expected, that it didn't generate a debate.
And that's why we're running for a third term!
No, we're not.
We're not?
No.
Who the hell said that?
That got behind a candidate who said over and over again that Obama was born in Kenya.
Are you a birther, Donald?
Okay. Something on that birth certificate that he doesn't like.
Oh my.
That said Mexicans were rapists in his announcement speech, who promised there would be a wall to his supporters and that Mexico was going to pay for it.
How are you going to make them pay for the wall?
I will, and the wall just got 10 feet taller, believe me.
When during the campaign, I would say Mexico's going to pay for it. Obviously, I never said this, and I never meant they're going to write out a check. I said they're going to pay for it. They are.
As far as concrete, I said I was going to build a wall. I never said, I'm going to build a concrete. I said I'm going to build a wall.
You said concrete.
Just so you don't, because I know you're not into the construction business.
What are the walls going to be made out of?
I'll tell you what it's going to be made of. It's going to be made of hardened concrete.
Concrete plank, precast, boom, being...
I said I was going to build a wall. I never said, I'm going to build a concrete. I said I'm going to build a wall.
And it had a Republican majority for 2 years and only decided to make it a priority after the midterms when he lost Congress, who nominated a vice president who believes in gay conversion therapy and is closely linked with an anti-LGBTQ organization.
This is about protecting the religious liberty of people of faith.
One fix that people have talked about is simply adding sexual orientation as a protected class under the state's civil rights laws. Will you push for that?
I will not push for that.
Final yes or no question, Governor. Do you think it should be legal in the state of Indiana to discriminate against gays or lesbians?
George,
it's a yes or no question.
Who promised he would give everybody health care, and again, with a Republican majority for 2 years, did nothing.
Trump couldn't sell Obamacare repeal to a House that voted for it 60 times already?
closing deals is the one thing President Big Boy Truck was supposed to know how to do.
The same guy who said, I'm gonna hire the best people and drain the swamp or something, and then all of his best people left him. This record turnover rate has its own Wikipedia page. He lied about not being able to stop the government from separating families.
Get away. The Democrats have to change their law. That's their law.
Then after receiving enough backlash, he stopped the government from separating families. But they didn't organize it well, so most of those families will be separated indefinitely. Yay, causing psychological trauma to babies. He botched the Puerto Rico aid. He recently lied about giving $91 billion to Puerto Rico. He took Vladimir Putin's side over his own intelligence agencies in front of the entire world.
They said they think it's Russia. I have President Putin. He just said it's not Russia. I will say this, I don't see any reason why it would be.
Does the Russian government have any compromising material on President Trump or his family?
And everything I just noted was this decade. But hey, supporting rich people who pay no taxes and don't like people who try to correct their verbiage, because those are the things that really matter in life.
Thank God Donald Trump's a Hulkamaniac. He'll know enough to let go of his materialistic possessions.
I mean, I get it. People are just trying to figure themselves out, and not everyone is a racist, and not everyone is a homophobe or a transphobe, but like, you're supporting these people, and they are that. And I don't think you should be appropriating a term that doesn't align with the values of the party or the people you support and follow. Although this video by its title can be perceived as confrontational, I want you to know that the goal I'm trying to achieve is not to tell you that the Matrix isn't for you, because we're all oppressed, whether it's by your social or your economic status, unless you're white, have a penis, and you make more than $400,000 a year, because that's the entryway to be in the top 1%. $400,000 isn't a lot of money, and 99% of people do not make over $400,000 a year. I think that's fucking wild. As I was saying, this film is for everybody, but it's just not for your ideas. I did a significant dive in the Red Pill community. I saw videos which...
And no one's gonna fucking stop it!
Yikes. And I explored its subreddit, which was a little more diverse politically than I expected. And there's some ideas I can get behind, like taking your life and doing it by your own terms. And I think that's something realistic that you can do as an individual. But also, that's just what you're supposed to do as an individual. Like, I'm not gonna buy 12 Rules for Life and expect it to be any more common sense oriented than the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. But yeah, 12 is bigger than 7, so I guess it's better. It's bigger. It's the best. It's the greatest. But yeah, personal responsibility sounds reasonable. But then you scroll over stuff like,
women want to be raped by a high-value man.
What? When a woman of this kind is sure that a man loves her, she has no further use for him.
So the reason why I dove into these channels and these forums is that I tried to find people talking about the film itself, and that also maintained this red pill stance. Also, I think it's very important to add that I am not going on 4chan or 8chan for research on this subject. I know it's a shithole, I know it's a dumpster fire, I know everyone there is just alone and hate themselves, and that's sad, but I am not subjecting myself to that under any circumstances, not for research, not for nothing, not forever, ever, ever, ever. So don't expect any deep dives into 4chan for this, because I am not doing it under any circumstances whatsoever. But what I found was kind of shocking, and that there isn't a whole lot that fits that criteria. It's almost like it's a part of this community without being examined at all. Maybe they haven't seen the film recently, or maybe they don't know who directed the film. Anyway, after searching long enough, I found what I was looking for. I stumbled upon this YouTube channel called The Red Pill Philosophy, and oh my god, is it a doozy of a channel.
Fucking stop it!
With over 200,000 subscribers, it's basically just a Florida man who talks into his camera about whatever he wants, and it's almost 100% about political issues. He doesn't mention the Matrix too much anymore because he's basically a flat earth channel now, because he wants to waste time doing thought experiments that were already concluded 1500 years ago and many moon landings later. Anyway, some of you might be upset that I'm using this extreme, low-hanging fruit example, but maybe you should have also made a video talking about Red Pill and the Matrix itself. You should have done that so I could roast you instead, but you didn't. So we're stuck with Florida Man. Going back to those screenshots I posted earlier of those channels that had Red Pill and Matrix tagged in their video about their Red Pill moment, I think it's kind of odd that since I took those screenshots that they've since removed those tags. So when you search up specific words, they're gone. It's almost like they're beginning to backpedal and this video is already proving itself. It's just very strange. As I've made this video, it continues to grow and evolve into something else. But that's what happens when you take forever to do something and you procrastinate like crazy.
Chapter 10, Florida Man.
Few films have impacted me as much as the original Matrix film did.
So going through these videos, you're kind of gonna get an idea of who this person puts himself out as on the internet, and it's just gonna get progressively...
Stop it! How to escape the Matrix and reawaken your greatness.
So we're gonna start off light on this video where he answers a fan letter from a 13-year-old about figuring out his life, which sounds fine.
Oh, here's a school for you.
School with the little slave children. Little fucking slaves.
Joe Rogan, a NASA physicist. We're living in the Matrix.
In this video, he uses talking points from scientists, which is weird since he basically turned into a flat earth channel. He also treats Joe Rogan like Aristotle or something, and it's weird, but hey, the editing is really fucking funny.
He went from being a guy who couldn't get booked anywhere to a guy that is living a dream. It's like all of a sudden the world changed and went from sucky to awesome.
Yeah.
And it's like he just reached some new level of the computer game, and that's the kind of thoughts that we need.
The whole universe wasn't there in the first place. It's just data.
It's going to be data that enters into certain people's minds.
It's just data.
It's going to be data.
These aren't all the Matrix-related videos he has, but I want to take a quick detour because I also went ahead and looked up the word transgender on his channel, and all of its affiliated slurs because the directors, and I found some stuff, so let's get ready, it's about to get bumpy.
Antifa uses his female status to fight black Trump supporter.
I promise you these sound bites aren't out of context. You can watch the full videos for yourself, but I thought I should take the brain cell hit instead of you.
Tranny? Look at that ugly ass tranny. Look, moment of gender equality because apparently this is a man. Probably a man. This freak right here is this tranny is using those values to immunize himself. And let's hope that this black dude gives this man a taste of the gender equality he, she, him, her always fucking wanted. Oh, come on, knee him in the face, dude. Come on, you got a perfect knee. But the point is that this man, woman finally got a taste of the gender equality that he, she has always wanted. And if you choose to join this cult, it's not because you're strong, it's not because you're fighting the system, it's not because you're fighting against the evil, racist, white supremacy white man. Has nothing to do with that. Has to do with you being a weak-minded cult member. Nothing more. You are the loser. You are the coon. You're the Uncle Tom. Get down, black man. I'm a white liberal. Get down, black man, like a slave.
But let's go to the part where he gets mad about a black liberal not agreeing with him in the same video where he says white liberals don't like it when black people don't agree with them.
I'm about to end this man's whole career.
They think of black people as political pawns in a chess game, in an ideological chess game. And look at this cowardly ass black dude back. Yeah, man, I'm a black guy and I'm part of the Antifa communist cult. But the moment a black person disagrees, the liberal will turn on him. So let me just put out a public service announcement. Even though I'm making my entire race look like a bunch of dumbasses because I'm part of a communistic, collectivistic cult, I have a question for you. Why is it that the moment a black person disagrees with your pathetically weak, cucked communist ideology, you attack them, shame them, ridicule them? But yeah, this is what a real black man looks like. All you Trump supporting black men out there, y'all a bunch of coon-ass Uncle Tom sellouts. And it's super ironic because you are basically a shameful human being, a waste to the planet Earth as a whole.
So what I gained from this video and his other video called Male spits on Trump supporters' face is that he refers to transgender people without respect, and it's never from a well-intentioned place at all.
And this is why I'm a huge supporter of the Second Amendment. Because some people are triggered by your right to pull the trigger in self-defense. The Second Amendment, the ultimate safe space since 1791. Well, there's no greater safe space than the safe space created by the Second Amendment. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, you want to trigger the left?
Bill Nye's Netflix show trashes white people, glorifies transgenders.
In this video, he makes more obscene references and convinces you to buy his dank t-shirt again.
From his whole transgender performance, pushing the idea that you can have any gender you want, so scientific, right? If you go to the Twitter page of that March for Science Twitter page, that establishment propaganda, and somebody asked them, they're like, hey, since you guys are pro-science, can you tell me how many genders there are?
Human sex chromosomes were discovered in 1905, while the English pronouns he and she originate in the Proto-Germanic language spoken during the pre-Roman Iron Age of Northern Europe beginning around 500 BCE.
The Matrix is officially shattered.
Did Kanye West shatter your bitrate? Oh my god, look at all these pixels. Well, this video isn't really important.
Kanye West has officially shattered the Matrix.
But wait, let me sell you my shirt again.
The left is in freak-out mode. They've lost their pop culture monopoly. How does the left recover after something like this?
I gotta testify. Come up and
A journey through the Matrix.
He talks about some stuff that is fine, more common sense stuff. Happiness comes from within, school system drains fun and passion out of learning, and after all that, I was like, oh, he was a completely different person before Trump ran for office. He seems more level-headed. I actually agree with some of the things he's saying.
If you're a little kid, you're watching cartoons, cut to commercial, it shows a little kid with a toy car in the air, he looks so happy, get the toy car and you'll finally be happy, right little kid? That's what you're conditioned from day one, from an early age. And then you go to CVS pharmacy, you get your prescription drugs from there. The whole fucking thing is designed to mediate your inner sense of unfulfillment with your life.
But then he goes and tries to sell his shitty t-shirts again. Hey, spend 7 minutes on this video where I'm in a car talking about how all of these stores want to sell you happiness, and then I'm gonna try to sell you a shirt based on something that I'm telling you is gonna make you free your mind and make you happy.
Who are you? I don't know where your head is at any given moment.
Hollywood attempts to blue pill you with Matrix Reboot.
This is what I found to be the most important video in regards to exactly what I was looking for. Here he talks about how little he knows about everything film related and the Matrix in general. He talks about Hollywood remaking things as if it's a recent occurrence.
Well, they say that imitation is the greatest form of flattery. And apparently, that's all Hollywood is good for nowadays. Luckily, it seems people are starting to learn their lesson about Hollywood remakes. That's all Hollywood can do nowadays, it seems. And that's all Hollywood can do, and I think people are learning their lessons.
It's also ironic that Get Out had come out 3 weeks before this video came out, and the entire film community was talking about Get Out for months, but okay.
Because people have finally realized that rehashing old franchises just for the sake of cashing in is the oldest trick in the corporate playbook, and it's fucking disgusting.
But I thought you said that's all Hollywood does nowadays, as if this is some new tactic.
So that's all Hollywood can do nowadays, it seems.
Are you saying it's an old tactic now? Do you know the words that are coming out of your mouth?
Why are you the way that you are?
Also, because you read some sarcastic tweets, you think people aren't gonna see it? Everyone shit on the Aladdin trailers because Will Smith looks fucking dumb, but that movie is probably gonna make $1 billion at the box office, whether we like it or not. The millionth Planet of the Apes film came out the year this video came out, and it made bank. The first solo film of the third Spider-Man in 10 years came out that year. The remake of It made money, Jumanji, Baywatch, another King Kong movie. Like, dude, the casual audiences are not wising up to anything.
The Matrix was one of the best films that I ever saw. Just one of my top favorite films of all time, period.
few films have impacted me as much as the original Matrix film did. But the second reason I'm even doing this video is because, well, the name of my YouTube channel is Red Pill Philosophy. Apparently the Wachowski brothers,
Uh-oh, he doesn't know. Yikes.
I called myself Red Pill Philosophy back in early 2012 as a reference to The Matrix, but particularly in taking the red pill to the nature of government and how the Republican and the Democrat parties were basically the same thing and it was all an illusion of choice. Maybe after this shitty Hollywood rebooting, I might have some nasty, shitty, negative Hollywood crap associated with my YouTube channel.
Is knowing the film was directed by trans people count as, quote, nasty Hollywood shit? I want to make sure that people understand that I'm not trying to say he should be disgusted that trans people directed his favorite movie. I just know that he doesn't respect trans people, and his whole shtick was created by them. I just wanted to clarify that because I realized this might be taken that way, but back to the nonsense. I'm sorry for digressing again for the millionth time.
And I would argue that the second movie and the third movie, even those were Hollywood corporate rehashings. My hunch, and I think there's actually reports that confirm this, the second Matrix and the third Matrix, the Wachowski brothers never even planned to make that, I don't think.
How is The Matrix your favorite movie and you didn't catch that shot from the architect's room in the first film? We don't even see or hear about the architect until the second movie. This was a planned trilogy.
Well, it's funny. I mean, one of the great things about them is how idealistic and ambitious they were when they sold us The Matrix. You know, they said, look, we have this trilogy.
But another thing I don't like about it is it's such an indicator of a shitty character of a person. Like, what kind of crappy human being puts so much effort into trying to rehash somebody else's creative vision just so that they can make a ton of cash? It's sick, and it's almost disingenuous. And they are using someone else's creative, passion-driven art to make a quick buck. So it's kind of disgusting.
Also, you'd think that since the reboot that was announced ended up turning into a fourth Matrix movie directed by Lana Wachowski, which was already shooting before coronavirus, that he'd say something about it, but he's been dead fucking silent on the topic. And his coronavirus hot takes, they're bad.
I don't believe the premise of the corona nonsense, the corona hoax. They want us all in our fucking houses for some reason I don't understand. These spring breakers, you know, storming Florida beaches, including Miami Beach, fucking heroes as far as I'm concerned. A lot of it's ambiguous because they're not exactly sure how it works. So a lot of it is we think, it is believed. I personally believe that the most unhealthy, destructive thing to do is to shut the economy down. Martial law is coming. Free cryptocurrency is waiting for you when you click the link in the...
Okay, so finally, before this chapter ends, I know you're tired of him already, probably, but imagine taking the time to find him and then watch and edit these videos over and over and over again. Trust me, I know your pain. Also, you might be wondering, besides the Matrix thing that he never addresses in his channel, why are you choosing him when he barely gets any views and he's losing subs by the day? Why does he matter? Well, he matters because he is one of many conservative YouTube channels that are going to these alternative websites. Just because they're getting shut down on Twitter and YouTube and Facebook and Instagram doesn't mean that they're not going somewhere else to go into their bubble of hating the other. Like, they're still congregating, they're still getting together, these ideas are still being pushed, whether we see them on our timelines or not.
Chapter 11, The Wachowskis.
So earlier, when I was talking about trans representation in film, most of these films deal with the trans experience on the first level. It's in the plot, the characters are trans, etc. The Matrix, however, is different from those films because The Matrix deals with this subject matter almost exclusively on the second and third level. And to create content on those levels requires you to take what you're creating personally, because you're trying to express how you deeply feel about something. And also, you're spending years years of your life on this, so like, if it's not personal to you, it's gonna fucking suck. I guess people are seeing that in Jordan Peele's films now because they're so politically motivated, but that goes with mostly any film you see. Even a film like The Matrix, that at face value is like this philosophical action film about a simulation or whatever. Imagine within over the span of almost a decade, writing a script for a trilogy, having to make a whole other film to make sure you're competent enough to make your trilogy, and then spend 5 of those years shooting and editing all 3 movies. You can't just spend all that time creating something if it wasn't personal. Just look at what happened to the Hobbit trilogy. And I believe that The Matrix is a very personal film for the Wachowskis, because they put themselves in it. They've put themselves in everything they've done. Here's a part of a speech Lily Wachowski made in 2016, shortly after she began her transition.
There's a critical eye being cast back on Lana's and my work through the lens of our transness. This is a cool thing, because it's an excellent reminder that art is never static.
If you've seen Lana's speech where she accepts the HRC's Visibility Award, you'll know that she struggled with her own identity ever since she was a child. It's something that almost made her take her own life.
I have never slept much, but during my sophomore year in high school, when I watched many of my male friends start to develop facial hair, I kept this strange, relentless vigil, staring in the mirror for hours, afraid of what one day I might see. Here, in the absence of words to defend myself, without examples, without models, I began to believe voices in my head that I was a freak, that I was a freak, that I am broken, that there is something wrong with me, that I will never be lovable. After school, I go to the nearby Burger King and I write a suicide note.
The rumors about Lana's transition started around the time when they were making the second and third Matrix films, and they didn't really make public appearances until they started doing press for Cloud Atlas. And if Lana was struggling with this, I'm pretty sure it's safe to assume Lily struggled with many of the same things. I think the Wachowskis wanted to make an action trilogy about their struggle, about how their life was not a choice, about how their identity and their validation in today's society was inevitable. But the world the Wachowskis were in when these films were made is not the world we live in today. And I'd argue we're not even close to where we need to be. If we're going to be honest here, most of the allies trans people have weren't really allies 20 years ago. I mean, look at what happened to Ellen when she came out in 1997.
I agreed to play the therapist in the show. People have responded with hate mail and fear.
And we all have things that are wrong with us, and we all do things that are wrong.
That's you saying that it's wrong. Look at all the millions of gay people in this country who don't think that being gay is wrong.
Accept it, though? Why?
Did you think the show was done tastefully, though? Did you think that?
It was done tastefully.
I would.
Well,
Very
we're not
nice
attacking
people.
you, we're attacking your lifestyle.
It's not a lifestyle. It's who I am. It's not a lifestyle. It's not a choice.
No.
The films I talked about previously that showed trans people on the first level are cult classics and didn't do well when they came out. Dog Day Afternoon is excluded because it was protected by Lumet, Pacino, and the plot. Even if you look at the other big movie in 1999 that was about the trans experience, Boys Don't Cry, it only made $11 million at the box office despite Hilary Swank winning an Oscar for it. If I was an adult in the 90s, there's a genuine possibility I would have been super ignorant of their situation. And I know this because even now, the most information I really knew about trans people up until about a year ago were just those lazy, hey, did you just assume my gender jokes that litter the internet. I wasn't intolerant of their existence or anything. I just didn't care enough to understand or investigate what they go through, which in my opinion is just as bad, to be honest. So back when The Matrix was made, there's no way the Wachowskis could have put themselves so transparently in the film. So they had to employ this thing Lana refers to as aesthetics. I've referred to it as the 3 levels of film art. It's all basically the same thing, and I agree that it's not talked about enough. Even on this very platform, most film-related videos are just dudes talking about the plot and being like, wow, plot bad. Aren't I so smart? Plot bad. I'm the best at writing, even though you've never seen anything I've ever wrote besides these videos. Please donate to my Patreon.
Dang, I wish we had a Patreon.
Me too.
But I guess we have to sell these t-shirts. Film the right thing. Finally, someone with balls, 2020. So, in response to what Lana is talking about, I'm going to finally explain how the Wachowskis infused themselves into the Matrix and used aesthetics to hide it instead of enhancing it.
Chapter 12. Bound.
When most people had to guess what started the Wachowskis' success, they think of The Matrix, which, if we're talking about box office success, they'd be right. But they don't get to make The Matrix without their first film, Bound. I know they made a lot of money off their first script, Assassins, but they've basically disowned it, so we're not talking about it. Bound is a crime thriller starring Jennifer Tilly, Gina Gershon, and Joe Pantoliano, who you know from The Matrix, and Daredevil. Now, I'm not gonna go too in-depth on Bound, but here are some things I would like to mention about it. The film is a lesbian crime drama about two women who are neighbors and fall in love, but Jennifer Tilly's character lives with Joe Pantoliano's character. And here's some things that are in the film. The first character you see Gina Gershon flirt with is a trans woman. When Tilly and Gershon's characters are together, they're usually trapped by many things visually, like the lines behind them in this scene that are like bars of a prison cell. They're trapped behind the windshield of Gershon's truck, and other things resembling a square or the masculine archetype. As a matter of fact, Pantoliano and Tilly's apartment is reeking of the male archetype in the production design, with orderly squares and the clean presentation. Also, look at this shot in the elevator. Gershon's apartment is the exact opposite. The apartment is empty, there's no real structure to it, it's a lot warmer in terms of its color palette, and there's flowers all over the walls. Both apartments represent the masculine and the feminine respectively, and there's a tug of war between the two, in the plot and in the aesthetic, especially when you see shots like this that put both apartments in the same shot. And the smoking gun that I think proves my point specifically is the very first shot of the film, which I remind you is the first film they ever made, which starts on a phallic object and then booms down, revealing a woman trapped in a closet, bound by rope, surrounded by women's clothing. The phallic object is overseeing the feminine trapped in a box. I don't think I really have to explain this film anymore. I watched Bound for the first time in preparation for this video, and when I saw the first shot, I was like, oh shit, that's them.
Look, I know Bound is all symbolism and stuff, but that sex scene was real cool.
Oh wow, well, I appreciate that you're still here listening to me ramble, I guess.
Yeah, man, I've just been drinking a lot, waiting for you to get to the point.
I just wanna be a woman.
Chapter 13, The Matrix.
God damn it! 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 Damn it! Fuck! Shit! God damn it! Why? Why did I take so long to make this video?
Here are just some of the symbols in The Matrix. The film begins with code falling in front of the screen like prison bars, and that's the language of The Matrix. It's computer code. It's man-made. We then see a blinking box. Then there's a scene where a woman is trying to leave the man-made fantasy world, and she's chased by men with power, using phallic symbols to kill her. It's the action equivalent to the first shot of Bound. In the real world, the Resistance is being hunted by Sentinels, which move a lot like sperm. The Resistance ships, like the Nebuchadnezzar, are oval-shaped, almost like an egg, and the way the Sentinels attack these ships is by penetrating them, so the metaphor of fertilization is kind of rapey. The agents show up in The Matrix whenever there is an irregularity in the program, something that isn't a societal norm. They become whoever witnesses it, and they enforce their will on the world they're ruling. Neo, when he finally wakes up outside of The Matrix, is in something resembling a womb. The structures that are holding all of the wombs surrounded by Neo are these long, cylinder-like columns. All of the wombs are filled with a fluid that acts a lot like a placenta. He has a bunch of cords attached to his body, and then he's flushed out of a canal and comes out of a hole. It's like they're giving him a natural birth, which is opposed to when you see Neo for the first time in the film, where he's asleep in front and attached to all of these man-made devices in front of a computer screen. Also, I think it's real clever that his apartment number is 101. Are you getting it?
There was that scene with the Oracle that I deadass do not understand, so hey San, please take the time to explain that to me, because I don't know what it means.
We'll get to it, but for the most part, it's mostly about Neo being the one, and fate, and stuff that people have already talked about to death.
Hashtag fate?
Sure. Let's go back to casting and characters now. Although I've been saying this film is about the trans experience, I don't think it's only for trans people. I think it's for everyone that is either being oppressed or is a minority in general. Most of the actors who play the Resistance are either minorities minorities or women. And of course, there are some white people in the Resistance, but the person who turns on the crew of the ship is the only white guy with the most access to the system. And we'll get to him in a minute because he's a character. The Oracle is a black woman.
Bingo.
All of the potentials that live with the Oracle are women. The Oracle and Trinity both give the same gendered response when Neo meets them for the first time.
I just thought, you were a guy.
Most guys do.
Not quite what you were expecting, right?
Morpheus is mostly an expository device in the film, but there are some things that he says and does that are worth noting. Racial subtext in 3, 2, 1. Agent Smith refers to him as the most dangerous man alive. Morpheus gets beaten down by police and it's framed in an objective way, showing that you, the audience, can't do anything about it. But later in the film, there's a shot where Morpheus literally breaks the handcuffs with the power of his wrists, like shackles. So there's that. And some of you might think, hey, that's a conservative thing, because he's breaking out of the liberal plantation or something. But getting out of the Matrix and joining the Resistance means that you've recognized that you're oppressed and you're doing something about it. Switching political parties and saying you're not oppressed, or the group of people you identify with culturally or racially and saying their oppression doesn't exist, when there's clearly systems in place that are oppressive to those people, then you're not leaving the Matrix, you're living in it. Morpheus also says things to Neo like,
"You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life."
I remember the 3rd grade. I remember recently moving and transferring from a public school to a Catholic school. Early on, I am told to get in line after a morning bell, girls in one line, boys in the other. I walk past the girls, feeling this strange, powerful gravity of association. As soon as I look towards the other line, though, I feel a feeling of differentiation that confuses me. The nun, I realize, is staring at me, and then she's shouting at me. My silence infuriates her, and she starts to hit me. And suddenly, most improbably, my mom suddenly just happened to be driving by, rips me away from her, rescuing me, and I think I'm safe. But then she takes me home, and she's trying to understand what happened, but I have no real language to describe it.
And there's another line that illustrates this same sentiment.
"Like everyone else, you were born into bondage, born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. A prison for your mind."
So let's go to Agent Smith. White guy, slicked back hair, black suit. The metaphor is clear. I don't need to explain that. But in the interrogation scene, Neo refers to Agent Smith as the Gestapo, then tells him that he knows his rights, which Agent Smith responds to by taking his voice away and penetrating him with a man-made object. Like the Sentinel and the ship metaphor, it's a little rapey. Agent Smith later tells Morpheus that people want to be oppressed, that humans wouldn't believe the reality of the Matrix if they weren't oppressed, if things were too perfect.
It was designed to be a perfect human world where none suffered, where everyone would be happy. And it was a disaster. Human beings define their reality through misery and suffering.
I don't think most Americans in their heart want to be given something.
Agent Smith refers to humans as not mammals. He calls them a virus, a plague. This is how oppressing forces describe groups of people they don't like. German Nazis referred to the Jews as vermin. Hutus referred to the Tutsis as cockroaches in Rwanda. Donald Trump referred to immigrants as not human.
These aren't people. These are animals.
Besides Donald Trump, those other examples have led to the deaths of almost 15 million people. And Donald Trump's example has led to the deaths of a couple of children, so there's that.
Pro-life, 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 pro-life.
It would be reasonable to assume that Agent Smith would be elated that he's on the top of the food chain in this world, but he reveals that he hates the world he's thriving in as much as the oppressed people do. His wrath comes from this hatred within himself, which reflects many groups on the internet, like the people I saw on the forums, because it's pretty clear to me that these men have been just as affected by the media's portrayal of what a woman should look like as much as women have. They think that they have to get this certain type of woman and they have to change everything about themselves to get that certain type of woman, and there's a lot of self-hatred that goes with that. I believe that Agent Smith is overall a symbol of everything the Wachowskis were and or are afraid of. The violent grip of masculinity, the societal norms that went against who they are, and the potential consequences for submitting to that oppression. Look at how big his fucking gun is. It's a .50 caliber Desert Eagle. How macho could his presentation possibly get without being Dirty Harry? Even Hugo Weaving's vocal performance of Agent Smith was inspired by the deep voices the Wachowskis used to have.
And also, the more I hung out with, the more I think I picked up on their rhythms. Both have an incredibly deep voice, and I think that kind of Agent Smith started to kind of talk a little bit like that as well.
Now let's talk about Neo, who is the opposite of Agent Smith, obviously. Neo expresses that the Matrix gave him memories from a life that wasn't his. Agent Smith says that Neo is living 2 lives with 2 different names.
It seems that you've been living 2 lives.
Agent Smith repeatedly calls Neo Mr. Anderson.
Mr. Anderson, Mr. Anderson, Mr. Anderson. Tell me, Mr. Anderson, Mr. Anderson,
Mr. Anderson.
Mr. Anderson. You hear that, Mr. Anderson? Goodbye, Mr. Anderson.
Which is pretty much his dead name.
What's a dead name?
A dead name is the given name that someone had at birth. So if you changed your name, the name you used to have is your dead name, the name you were born with. I think it's important to mention that the last name comes from the father. So when they call him Mr. Anderson and only Mr. Anderson, the movie is presenting his dead name in a masculine way. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. He's the only person that does this in the movie besides his boss. Everyone else in the movie calls him Neo, which is his chosen name. In the scene where Neo finally fights Agent Smith in the subway, Agent Smith again calls Neo by his dead name. But when Neo finally has the strength to fight back, he makes a point to correct him.
Goodbye, Mr. Anderson. My name is Neo.
That moment is pretty much the conclusion of Neo's arc within this interpretation of the film. He finally states who he is. And over the kitchen door in the Oracle's apartment, there's a quote that translates to, "Know thyself." Hey, remember when you asked about the Oracle scene?
Huh? Me?
You asked about the Oracle scene earlier. Well, that's it. Besides all the stuff about fate and being the one, it's about knowing yourself without the influence of the Matrix. In the scene before, Neo has an interaction with this bald girl and she shows him how to bend a spoon. And she tells him, there is no spoon.
Then you'll see that it is not the spoon that bends, it is only yourself.
And once he registers that idea, he bends the spoon in his own reflection. The spoon is the Matrix. And what's the Matrix?
Control.
The simulacra, or the Matrix for the Wachowskis, is society. I mean, like literally, it's a society, but metaphorically, it's society's lens that the Wachowskis for so long were forced to see through. This is the lens that Lana has stated that made her feel like she didn't fit in. And when Neo is able to figure out he's the one, he's able to return to the oppressive framework and be himself, and overcome the people who are trying to control him. Morpheus tells Neo,
there's a difference between knowing the path and walking the path.
And Neo's arc in the first film is about walking the path. But, and I think this is just as important, Neo couldn't have walked the path without allies, without love. And love saves Neo in this film. Agent Smith kills him, but he's brought back to life through something as illogical and as emotional as love. Also notice that this love is coming from a woman, further pushing the symbol of the feminine. And to further push this point, Neo's final words in the film are this.
I'm going to hang up this phone, and then I'm going to show these people what you don't want them to see. I'm going to show them a world without you. A world without rules and controls, without borders or boundaries. A world where anything is possible. Where we go from there is a choice I leave to you.
Slow it down!
Okay, notice that the last letter of system is an M, which stands for male, and the first letter of failure starts with an F, female. And the camera goes in between M and F as the letters become distorted when Neo says,
a world without rules and controls, without borders or boundaries. A world where anything is possible.
How could you deny that this isn't intentional? It is so intentional. When the Red Pill community thinks about the Matrix, they probably see themselves as the Resistance, or more specifically, Neo. But they're not Neo. They're Cypher. They're Joe Pantoliano. Don't believe me?
Do we have a deal, Mr. Reagan?
In The Matrix, with the last name Reagan, he wants to be...
someone important. Like an actor.
Interesting how that Reagan made it easier to advertise to children through television, molding them early into thinking they need things that are advertised to them. I remember somebody saying that buying things shouldn't make you happy, or shouldn't control your desires.
Get the toy car and you'll finally be happy, right, little kid? That's what you're conditioned from day one, from an early age.
I don't remember who said that, though. Interesting how that Reagan's economic policies set a modern precedent for conservatives, which caused multiple recessions and eroding the middle class to the point where people have to make videos to sell you a t-shirt.
Lee Atwater, again, was one of Reagan's closest advisors. And you're gonna hear the type of thinking from Atwater in this next clip.
How abstract you handle the race thing. In other words, you start out, now y'all aren't quoting me on this. You start out in 1954 by saying by 1968, you can't say that hurts your backfire, so you say stuff like forced busing, states' rights, and all that stuff. And you're getting so abstract now, you're talking about cutting taxes, and all of these things you're talking about are totally economic things, and the byproduct of them is blacks get hurt worse than whites. Because obviously sitting around saying, we want to cut taxes, we want to cut this, and we want is much more abstract than even the busing thing. And a hell of a lot more abstract than
last night. I tell you, to watch that thing on television as I did. Yeah. To see those monkeys from those African countries. Damn them, they're still uncomfortable wearing shoes.
Interesting how that Reagan's indifference to the LGBTQ community during the AIDS crisis led to so many unnecessary deaths. It's very interesting to me that Reagan and Cypher have the same name. Interesting. Cypher also picks the comfortability of the Matrix over his peers, and his betrayal of the Resistance is solely on the fact that what he wants the truth to be and what the truth is aren't the same thing.
The Matrix isn't real.
I disagree, Trinity. I think the Matrix can be more real than this world.
Like thinking the red pill is for an ideology that in practice doesn't recognize trans people as trans people, yet the term red pill was created by trans people in a period when they were trying to muster up the courage to transition. You might be thinking, well, I'm a conservative and I support trans people, but the people you vote for don't, so like, do you really?
But what about the cool boom boom explosion and bullet time? Look how cool this is, it's so cool, fucking love it, cool!
It is cool, and that's the point. The action is stylized because they can do it in the context of the world they created, where you can do anything if you put your mind to it. The action is stylized because the Wachowskis were trying to add something new to the conversation of what an action film can be. But ultimately, in my opinion, the action is stylized to the degree that it is, and the film overall is framed like it is, because although all of the elements of their aesthetic had been done before, it had never been seen all together at once. When you look at the aesthetic of the film, as you have for most of this video, you cannot deny how overwhelmingly distinct this film looks. When people watch The Matrix, they don't walk away with the fact that Agent Smith dead names Neo the entire film. No, they think, wow, bullet time, that's cool. Wow, look at the pills in the reflection, that's cool. Wow, look at the slow motion gunfights and flipping, that's cool. Look at this shot, that's cool. A distinct visual presentation is always more powerful than what's written on the script. And when the aesthetic doesn't match the subtext, it's much easier to hide the subtext. You can remember what a film like A Ghost Story is trying to say, if you've seen it, because nobody saw it even though it's great, because the subtext and the presentation support each other. It's a film about a ghost trying to connect with his girlfriend, but also it's about how time is relative, and in the moments where life is hardest, time goes by like molasses. Like in this scene where Rooney Mara's character comes home after the funeral, and you watch her scarf down nearly an entire pie until she throws up. But you're there for 5 to 10 minutes watching her actually deal with her grief, and the silence in the scene is deafening, and you want to leave the scene as fast as possible because the shot doesn't move, and she's sitting there in her grief, and you have to be there, because the film is forcing you to be there, like how she's forced to feel this way. The presentation of this scene is supporting the acting, the writing, everything. But The Matrix, like I said, is the polar opposite. The difference between how this film uses stylized action versus what a Zack Snyder film would do is that in a Zack Snyder film, the presentation isn't to trick a general audience to be exposed to a social justice narrative. It's just there to be cool. There's no layers, there's no thought other than, how do I make this cooler? The presentation, or the aesthetic, or the style, or whatever you want to call the visual direction of The Matrix, is a lie. It's a false flag, if you will. It's like its own Matrix. But hey, Bound and The Matrix are just fluke examples, right? No.
Chapter 14, V for Vendetta.
The very next film they worked on was V for Vendetta, which they adapted from the graphic novel as screenwriters and producers, and allegedly as directors.
Our story begins, as these stories often do, with a young up-and-coming politician. He's a deeply religious man and a member of the Conservative Party.
Now granted, V for Vendetta is on all 3 levels a political story, there's no disputing that, but the ideas I've expressed in regards to Bound and The Matrix are followed through in this film for sure. Firstly, there is this song in the end credits called B-Cab by Ethan Stoller, and there's a spoken word segment towards the beginning where someone says,
"Sex and race, because they are easy, visible differences, have been the primary way of organizing human beings into superior and inferior groups and into the cheap labor on which this system still depends. We are talking about a society in which there will be no roles other than those chosen or those earned. We are really talking about humanism."
Some people might say,
well, that's a reach because it's in the credits.
But the music you put in your end credits is a continuation of the film. The runtime of films includes the credits, but maybe that's not enough for you. So, you know what? I'll continue. The character Louis Prothero, which in the mid-2000s would be a stand-in for Bill O'Reilly, but he got fired from Fox News for being Bill O'Reilly.
It's a good place to work, all right?
So now he's on YouTube doing whatever this is.
And I am very proud of this because I have a small but elite staff.
Bill, you got tens of millions of dollars for sexually harassing women at work, and you bought the same mic that I have, that I'm currently speaking through? How fucking cheap are you? You can't afford a hair and makeup team either. You look like a slightly less decaying Steve Bannon. That's what happens when you have a lot of hate in your heart, you guys. You age terribly. Anyway, a more current figure would be like Tucker Carlson or something.
Immigrants, Muslims, homosexuals, terrorists, disease-ridden degenerates. They had to go.
Diversity is our strength. It'll be in our currency before long, trust me.
Yeah, that's accurate. Sean Hannity might be a more accurate comparison because Louis Prothero is friends with the Chancellor in V for Vendetta. So that's journalism, being friends with politicians and talking to them regularly.
England prevails.
England prevails? Sounds like America first to me. And this movie version of England where the fascists take over, unlike The Matrix, is lacking in diversity. The only people of color in this film are in the concentration camp scenes, or scenes where they're straight up being kidnapped by the government. This film, like The Matrix, has its own Gestapo called the Fingermen. The Fingermen is an odd name, isn't it? Also, the weapon of the Fingermen is a phallic object, like the agents. The Chancellor executes a man who parodies him on television, and I know a certain leader who really does not like to be parodied on television.
I mean, it is a film which pulls no punches in its satire against authoritarianism, against oppression, against the general move that you might say this 21st century is taking in some so-called civilized countries against gay rights, against religious freedom, against the other, against outsiders.
They've removed all art from the culture, music, paintings, etc. Sutler, for most of the film, exists on a screen. All of the scenes with Chancellor Sutler in them, besides being obviously Riefenstahl-esque, are overtly masculine. There are quotes like this.
Fear became the ultimate tool of this government, and
which make you think of stuff like this.
They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists.
Which make you think of stuff like this. Which make you think of the Larkill scenes. It's all connected. V for Vendetta was so ahead of its time.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
The first person in the film you openly see revolting against the government that isn't a part of the main cast is a young woman. The whole movie stops to tell the story of Valerie, a gay woman who spent her whole life trying to find a place where she can find peace, and when she was able to find that peace, the government murdered her. The male authority figures in her life shot her love down as something to be ashamed of, and all but one woman gave in to the pressure that the male-dominated society placed on them, which was to give up on Valerie and abandon her. Her first girlfriend gave in to the idea that their sexual identity was just a phase. Her mother said nothing when her father disowned her. One of the most important memories that she had with her partner that she describes was growing roses in the house, which falls in line with the feminine archetype. Besides the fact that V is the Roman numeral for the number 5, which was the name of his room at Larkhill, I don't think it's a coincidence that the first letter in Valerie is a V, and that V's logo is enclosed with a circle, so like he's carrying out his revenge in a way through Valerie. V also says this during his speech to the nation.
The truth is, there is something terribly wrong with this country, isn't there?
Which reminded me of this line from The Matrix that I played earlier.
You felt it your entire life, that there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there.
It's almost like the speech is the red pill scene from The Matrix. To further connect the ideas of The Matrix to the Wachowskis' adaptation of V for Vendetta, V is a persona created by the man in the mask. It's his chosen name, like Neo. V also says things like,
there is a face beneath this mask, but it's not me. I'm no more that face than I am the muscles beneath it, or the bones beneath them.
Which, I mean, hello, dysmorphia.
What's dysmorphia?
You have the internet, okay? Look it up. Also, fun fact, The Matrix Revolutions came out on the 5th of November, which is the infamous day V wants the audience to remember in the book and the movie.
Chapter 15, Cloud Atlas and Final Thoughts.
He believed that love was real. A kind of natural phenomenon. He believed that love could outlive death.
So, what about Cloud Atlas? This film came out right when Lana Wachowski began to be more in the public eye since The Matrix came out, and its ideas are less hidden than they've been in any of the Wachowskis' films. And this film deals with what happens to the world when we really get to see and experience things like freedom and love. The effect that love can have on people. It's a film that asks the audience to take any of its potential cynicism and put it somewhere else. And by the way, if you've never heard of this film, it has 6 storylines over 6 time periods, and it's almost 3 hours long. It's very dense in terms of the amount of content they were able to fit in that amount of time, and I'm in complete awe at its ambition, and I really like this film a lot. It's a film about oppression, whether it's the oppression of black people, gay people, old people, and women. Male actors play female characters, and female actors play male characters, and races are mixed. It's all connected. And at this point, you've seen many images from this film, and because I've been going over these ideas about the 3 levels for so long, I hope you've already been looking for these ideas in these images. So hopefully at this point you're already seeing what I've been explaining, hopefully. But there is one thing I want to focus on in particular, and I think it's something that's going to help me wrap up my thoughts. And it goes into what I think is important about the Wachowskis and how they represent themselves on film, and the importance of people seeing that. There's a woman in the film who's a slave to this corporation, and her entire existence is to be sexualized, until she sees a piece of media where this is said.
I will not be subjected to criminal abuse.
Her reaction to this line is like seeing a new color for the first time. She uses what she saw in the media as vindication that they should be allowed to stand up for themselves, even if the price for that is her life.
Here, in the absence of words to defend myself, without examples, without models, I began to believe voices in my head that I was a freak, that I am broken, that there is something wrong with me, that I will never be lovable.
She learns of the full scale of her oppression and decides that her freedom is worth dying for. Her being able to find that courage turns her into a deity in the post-future period at the end of the movie. These storylines aren't isolated in an echo chamber of the periods they take place. They're all connected. It's almost like the Wachowskis are paying homage to all of the people who have suffered before them, who paved the way for them to make something as heavily coded as The Matrix is, to something more explicit like Cloud Atlas.
Our lives are not our own. From womb to tomb, we are bound to others, past and present.
Like the previous films in the Wachowskis' filmography, it's not just for certain people, it's for everyone willing to open their hearts and try to connect and understand others. But if you continue to get in the way of progress, you're gonna fail. It's a lot more hopeful than the Matrix trilogy, which ends with the fight between the system and the resistance being an inevitable, endless cycle. By showing someone ignorant to the oppression of others what the oppressed go through, only then will they truly understand the oppression. And like I said earlier, if you're watching this video and you're not a multimillionaire, or you're not making more than $400,000 a year, we're all oppressed by this fucked up system created by people who only want us to be able to achieve minimal success. So the ignorance can be an oppressed person, like Somni451 from Cloud Atlas, like the Red Pill Philosophy YouTube channel and his followers. We're all in the same boat, but I think that's what's so amazing about cinema, is that anyone from just about anywhere can see a life in a way that you can't with a painting or a photograph because it's static. You can see a life in a way that you can't with an album because you can't see it. You can see a life in a way that you can't with a video game because with a video game you have the autonomy to fight back against adversity. And if you lose, you can try again. With cinema, you're stuck with the situations you're presented with. You can't change it. It's like life. And what I think is so important about seeing these types of stories is not just so that people who go through the same things can see themselves on screen, it's that the ignorant people who don't know that oppression, who don't know that struggle, can see that struggle, and we can further connect with each other. Cinema is the single most profitable entity that creates empathy, and the Wachowskis have done an amazing job at doing that.
I didn't have final cut on that.
Oh my god, it's finally over. Thank you so much. If you've made it this far, honestly, you're a real one. There's a case to be made that maybe this video shouldn't have been as long, but I felt like every piece of it was necessary to lead into the next thing, and it is what it is. If you want us to do more videos like this, preferably ones where we finish it on time, hit the like button, tell us in the comments if you want more, or if you agree or disagree with any of the things, tell us. If you want to give us more trans movie recommendations, send them our way. TV shows are too long, so don't even fucking bother. We love you, and we'll see you on the next video that we promised that hasn't happened yet. Bye-bye!